Good morning, friends. And here's another addition to my revisiting the MERP campaign system Middle Earth role playing. Like I've said in a couple of my other vlogs, that ICE, ICE's approach to things like modules are more like a mini source book and less like a traditional module. Although they do have their versions of them. This particular one is one of those. It's called a river running. They call it an adventure. Uh, Adventure module. It's published in 1992. So this is getting into the latter part of their production, and sometime the next year, unless they, I don't know, they just stopped producing stuff. They built up, bought out something. There was a lot of conjecture and opinion on how that worked, and others who are much more knowledgeable than me could tell you exactly what went on down there. Um, the river running is this. You can't see the map here, and it's a cutaway of the area. It's set in an area called the Dorwinion. It's a wine country, if you will. It's north of the Sea of Run, much to the south of the Iron Hills and east of Mirkwood for some distance. It's set with a bunch of the inhabitants themselves are generally not neutral types. They try to get along with everybody. They're not aggressive. They're not trying to. They're just merchant slash farmer slash vineyard people wanting to make a buck and a life for themselves and their families, and try to get, like I said, try to not be hostile to anybody. Yeah, the reference to the area in the novels, I think, only comes up once or twice. It's because of excuse me, it's because of the wine, of course. They produce the famed wine of Dorwinion or whatever. Now, as a overall game system or addition to the game system, it gives you a number of different. And this is typical of a lot of ISIS stuff. This is one of the reasons why this, as a module, it's much bigger, much thicker than your traditional game module, at least the ones I'm familiar with from Dungeons and Dragons and assorted other similar game systems. And here it says in the back, features 6 challenging adventures, complete layouts and maps, statistics for all the beast monsters and NPCs, tables of results, extensive GM notes for exciting well-run play, and rewards for successful adventures described in detail. Included the coveted license to export Dorwinion wine. Dorwinion, the land of Maidens, flanks the eastern end of River Running, where it flows into the Sea of Ren. Inhabited by traders and diplomats, Rome is famed for its magnificent wines, casks of sparkling whites, subtle reds, sweet roses. I think I know where it's mentioned. There's a brief blurb when Bilbo's in the Bilbo and the 13 Dwarves are stuck in the dungeons of the Wood Elves, and there was a mention by somebody in there of the wines or the casks in general. Anyway, so lots of information, lots of detailed stuff. We got some good, your maps and your artwork, just like you'd expect to find in an ICE production, well laid out. So technically, if you make an argument, this is 3 modules in one or 6 modules in one, although a lot of average modules usually come with enough stuff to go 3 or so adventures within them. There's a background story information on all the NPCs, talks about Dorwinion a little bit, its politics, its economic situation, the differences of merchants and stuff that are there, the people, the geography, the culture, but mostly it's more leaning towards the story and the game system, the campaign that you're running, and less in as backstop material, which is an evolution from earlier stuff. I think personally it's because at this point they've got more people writing for them, more developers coming in, and I think just personally these are people that are used to doing things for stuff like Dungeons and Dragons and Star Wars at the time, and are trying to, I don't know, change things. And this might be one of the reasons ICE ended up going going to the wind. Later down the road, the near too distant future, there was a reason why it was so effective and so popular for a long time, and it's because of their system and their style, not because they tried to be a carbon copy of everybody else, which unfortunately too many game systems tend to do. If you look at them, especially new ones that suddenly appear and then they just flood the market with new stuff, and if you look at it, most of that stuff is just rehashed old stuff from somebody else. It is what it is. You know, let's see, we got our conversion charts. Yeah, right. I think I said it before, how I take the D100 system and I just divide it by 5, so, or divide it by 20. So if you've got to get your stats, and basically it's a D100 item is a +5 item, so they actually have a conversion chart. These start cropping up in the 91 and later books. So I'm pretty much sure that's where I got my idea for that stuff. You know, what I think as a book goes, there's a lot of really good material here, a lot of detail, a lot of depth, a lot of it works together, and the writers are still working with that mindset of spinning a Tolkienish worthy story. And like a lot of their stuff, I've used one or two of these before in other games, for Dungeons and Dragons and for I'm trying to think of that other system we were playing for a while. Anyway, we just didn't not because there was anything wrong with their game systems, modules and adventures. It's because sometimes I'm a cheap SOB and I don't want to go out and just keep buying new stuff over and over and over again. That's only going to get used once. That's the problem with modules and adventures in general. I don't care what the game system is. We buy them for convenience. We buy them majority of the time. It's just for something we can yank off the shelf and throw up as an impromptu game at the moment's notice, or we might work it into something, but then it never gets used again. It just gets put up on the shelf and just adds to it. What, dozens and dozens and dozens of more. I did the same thing early D&D when it first came out. I bought I don't know, 15 or 20 various modules, and then at some point I just stopped buying modules for them because they didn't offer anything new. I mean, they weren't giving me any kind of stuff that I could really use as world building, if you will. I can't say that about MERP, especially the majority of the early stuff. As we start getting into these later things, that stuff starts to taper off, and I think it cost them a little bit. In most of the other source books or the other adventure books, you're going to have an entire chapter on the region, on the geography of this. They just had a couple pages, and then it went straight on into the various 6 interlinking adventures, which is fine, but it's deviating from the standard that they set, that the MERP people set in the earlier days, and that all these things would be connected to the big map, if you will. They would be important to, even if it's just localized locations. This one here is actually a fairly good sized location on the map, and there's very little information on that, and it is what it is. Okay, so river running. Good adventure module. Some really good writing and stuff in here. Worthy of being used in other game systems. Try it if you get a chance.